Thank you for joining us for our evening service. Rabbi Smolkin will lead our service and lead our davening, which begins on page 5 as we rise for the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Adonai. Baruch Adonai, our God, ruler of time and space, whose word brings the evening dusk, whose wisdom opens the gates of dawn, whose understanding changes the day's division, whose will sets the succession of seasons or arranges the stars in their places in the sky, who creates day and night, who rolls light before darkness and darkness from light, who makes day pass into night, who distinguishes day from night. Adonai Tzvot is your name, living and ever-present God. May your rule be with us forever and ever. Baruch At Adonai, who brings each evening's dusk. Umavir yom u'bevi laila, umavdil ben yom u'ben laila. Adonai Tzvot shemo, El Chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam vahed. Baruch Atah Adonai Hamariv Aravi.
Amen.
Page 6. You have loved your people, the house of Israel, with infinite love. You taught us Torah and mitzvot, statutes and laws. Therefore, Adonai, our God, as we lie down or rise up, we shall think of your laws and speak of them, rejoicing in your words of Torah and your mitzvot forever and ever. For they are our life and the fullness of our days, and on them we will meditate day and night. May you never withdraw your love from us. Baruch Atah Adonai, who loves the people Israel. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגע יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל.
Amen.
The Shema, middle of page 6. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך וקומך, וקשרתם לאוטו ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Page 7. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Page 8. ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל לכדו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו עולם מי כמוך בהלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורא תהילות אוסף אלה מלכותך ראו בניך בו כי הים לפני משה זה ליענו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני כישראל.
Amen.
Page 9, Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu, Adonai. ושמור צאתנו בואנו לחיים ולשלום את אברהם ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך ברוך אתה אדוני הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל Yerushalayim. We rise, page 10. Tiku v'chodesh shofar v'kesel yom chagenu ki chok leYisrael hu mishpat lelohei Yaakov. יתגדל ויתגדל שמי רבה ויעמד יברכרתה וימליך מלכותה בחיי חון וביומי חון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה בברך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי לקודשה בריחו לעילה לעילה מקום ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחבתה דמירן מעלמה אמרו We continue now davening quietly, pages 11 through 17 for the Amidah, pages 11 through 17. We continue now with Kaddish Shalem, page 19. Yitgadol vayitgadol shemei rabba v'alma tivrach chiruteh ve'amlich malchuteh b'chayechon uvyomechon ובחיידך בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם על עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשא ברכו לעילה לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. תתקבל צלטון ובוטון דכל ישראל קדם אבוהון דבשמיא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיא וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו
Amen. All right, Shana Tova. We are now entering into our second day of Rosh Hashanah as the sun begins to set and we turn to the second day of Yom Tov. I always wonder, what do we make of this second day of the holiday? Why do we celebrate for 2 days as opposed to one? I like to think of the second day of Rosh Hashanah as our second chance at this holiday. If we were distracted from prayer and reflection on the first day, we have another chance on the second. On the second day, when we are more familiar with the prayers and the songs, we can have a deeper and more meaningful experience. We gain another chance to make teshuvah, to turn our lives and to take a second chance at what we are hoping to do. The second day, you could say, is a second chance at taking a second chance. We like to think in our lives that when we take a second chance at something, that when we try again, it will be better than the first. If we miss the first basket, then we'll make the basket the second time. We will do better. But what happens when a second chance is less than appealing? What happens when it is option B as opposed to option A? What happens even when a second chance comes not from our own choosing? These days, many life cycle events, graduation ceremonies, and B'nai Mitzvah have been rescheduled or they've been moved online. Our second chance at these events, these make-up events, sometimes don't quite line up with our expectations. They aren't what we hoped and dreamed the big day would be. How do we respond to this situation? As Rabbi Smolkin really beautifully demonstrated this morning and last night, the Jewish people have become experts at making the most of our second chances, at responding to the changes in our lives, making the most of them, allowing them to still feel special and important and holy. And we have demonstrated this even here at our live stream services. We continue to embrace and to cherish the opportunities that we have to gather and to celebrate life, even if it looks different than what we expected. In fact, it is our very capacity to celebrate, to have simcha, joy, that carries our people forward. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs has written really beautifully of that. I'd like to tell you a story this evening. This is a story about one Rosh Hashanah about 2,500 years ago, but the themes of that story resonate so deeply with us today. This story demonstrates the power of joy, the power of simcha, to turn a second chance, to turn option B into something pretty amazing. When the Persian Empire swept over the Middle East, they invited some of the Jewish community to return to the land of Israel. This was their second chance at rebuilding the temple since the first one had been destroyed 70 years earlier. This was a rescheduled worship service in quite a different form than the original one had been. Yes, some of the people were together in person, but there were so many fewer of them present, and the building that they had been accustomed to, the building that they loved, was gone. The people were feeling quite low about themselves and their prospects for the future. Even the prospect of rebuilding the temple seemed a huge hill to overcome. As a result, enter into the picture the leader, the scribe Ezra. Ezra knew the people needed something, so he assembled the entire people of Israel together on the first day of the 7th month, on Rosh Hashanah. And he read to them from our holy Torah scroll. This was, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs writes, the first national education seminar of the Jewish people, and what a seminar it was. It touched the people so deeply that they began to weep. They heard the mitzvot, they heard the commandments that they were called to do, and they realized the extent of their challenge. They feared they would not be able to live up to the call of God in the Torah. How could they possibly achieve what they were called to do? But Ezra, Nehemiah, who was the governor at the time, and the Levites, they reassured the people. Do not mourn, do not weep. Go, eat good food, drink good drinks, and send portions to those who have none. For today is holy, kadosh, holy to God. Do not be sad, for rejoicing in God will be your strength. What did Ezra and Nehemiah tell the people here? They reminded them that although their return wasn't exactly what they had envisioned, it was something special. It was, in fact, holy. They told the people to make the most of their time together, rejoice, celebrate, have an amazing time, because when the people would do this, Ezra and Nehemiah knew, when the people would rejoice together in God, they would discover the strength to rebuild. They would discover the strength to carry on and to make great things happen. We know this. We know this from our own lives. Think back to when you celebrated a truly wonderful, amazing simcha, a wedding, a bar or bat mitzvah, a birthday party. Think back and remember the joy and the energy, the positive spirit that you brought home with you from that event. You may have even felt inspired to do something good, to continue on in your life and to take action for good. That is the strength that Ezra and Nehemiah are referring to when they say rejoicing in God will be your strength. Serve God with joy, the psalm tells us, because when we do, we are all strengthened to do good. And this is exactly what happens in our story. The people do in fact eat and drink and have a great time. They rejoice in God and in one another. And the next morning, the second day of Rosh Hashanah, this second day of Rosh Hashanah, the people wake up, and they don't wake up with a hangover. Instead, they wake up with renewed energy and with renewed strength to rebuild their lives and to return to God. What do they do that morning, that second morning of Rosh Hashanah? They learn Torah. They gather with Ezra, who again reads from the Torah scroll, and they discover the mitzvah of Sukkot, that most joyous festival when we build the huts, the Sukkot, and live in them. The people proceed to build Sukkot all around the city and the country, on their roof, in their courtyards, everywhere they can find. They quite literally begin to rebuild their land. And Nehemiah notes that this turns out to be the best Sukkot in Israel in quite a long time. In fact, the best celebration of this holiday since the days of Joshua, son of Nun. This was a truly wonderful celebration. The people here managed to transform a paltry second temple into a special, incredible, holy festival that powered the people to rebuild their lives, their temple, and their homeland. How did they do this? It all began when Ezra and Nehemiah told the people to enjoy, savor, and celebrate the moment. Rejoice in God, and you will be strengthened. Joy has an incredible power to sustain and to strengthen us. Simchas are the Red Bull of our people. Ezra and Nehemiah knew that the people had all of the ingredients they needed for a simcha. They had food, they had drinks, and most importantly, they had one another. Now these days, unfortunately, we can't gather together in person as the people Ezra and Nehemiah led. But like Ezra and Nehemiah, we too can gather together and gather strength from communal joy, from simcha. We too can make the most of our option B. And just like Ezra, Nehemiah, and the people discovered strength in rejoicing in God, so too can we. I found the simchas we have celebrated these last numbers of months, the B'nai Mitzvah over Zoom, the baby namings, the brisses, the wonderful Torah Fund event last Sunday, to be so joyful and so sustaining. These events have connected us to one another in a way that even transcends the physical, in a way that binds us in our hearts and in our spirits. We remember that we are part of a larger whole, of a larger community here at Adath Israel, and part of the Jewish people, a community that shares beliefs, values, and traditions that go beyond the physical. Our shared joy gives us strength in knowing that we are not alone, that we are here together and we will make it through together. Like Ezra and Nehemiah and the people they led, we've realized here at Adath Israel that we can have a good time. We can celebrate together in these times. We've celebrated simchas. We've reached out to one another in advance of this holiday. And our classes, our services, our advocacy efforts have picked up at a greater pace. We've enjoyed meals together. I was just remarking with Talia Smolkin about the cake, the delicious cake that we both had last night in our own homes, where we shared that cake together. We know that we can celebrate and we can rejoice together in God, and in so doing we can discover strength that we didn't know we had to build and to rebuild our community. Just like Ezra and Nehemiah worked to rebuild the temple, so too will we work to regather together in person. We will return to our option A. But until then, in Sheryl Sandberg's words from her powerful book on coping with the loss of her husband, we will kick the beep out of option B. We will make the most out of our lives, and we will discover hidden strengths, resilience, and a new perspective on life, like the people 2,500 years ago that Ezra and Nehemiah led, like the Jewish people have always done. We will find strength in our continuing to rejoice and our continuing to celebrate in this new year. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova and Yashar Koach, Rabbi Chedel, thank you for those beautiful words of Torah. At this point, we're going to turn to the bottom of page 22 with the letter Dalet. This comes from the Sephardic liturgy and is actually part of the Rosh Hashanah Seder. Of course, some of you may be joining for our Rosh Hashanah Seders this year, and hopefully will only continue and increase these traditions here at Adath, Israel. But this particular piece of liturgy, way at the bottom of the page, it's transliterated on the left side of the page as well. Boy, this year, it's really feels like it has import. Tichle shana v'kileloteha, may this year's troubles end. Tachel shana uverchoteha, and a year of blessings begin.
Amen.
As we say goodbye to 5780 and all of its tsuris, we really welcome 5781. May it give us all tremendous blessings. We continue now on page 23, in the middle of the page. In your great kindness, aid us, Adonai, our God, to embrace this Rosh Hashanah with love and overwhelming joy as a gift from you. Through the celebration of this sacred Rosh Hashanah, may we attain a full and true faith. Help us to gather together the sparks of holiness within ourselves as we join with all the people Israel, congregating from their individual homes and joining together on these high holy days of Rosh Hashanah to bless your sacred name. It's like it was written for this time. We continue now as Rabbi Chedel leads us in Kiddush, page 24.
Savrei L'chaim.
L'chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol aham v'romemanu mikol hashon v'kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav v'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu be'ava et yom hazikaron hazeh yom teruah mikra kodesh zecher litziat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kiddashta mikol ha'amihim udvarcha emet v'kayam lahad Baruch atah Adonai Melech al kol haaretz mekadesh Yisrael 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 v'yom hazikaron. And now, since it's Saturday evening, as we conclude Shabbat, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh lechol ben or lechoshech ben Yisrael la'amim ben yom hashvi'i l'sheshet yemei ha'ma'aseh ben kedushat Shabbat l'kedushat yom tov hivdalta ve'et yom hashvi'i misheshet yemei ha'ma'aseh kiddashta hivdalta v'kiddashta et amcha Yisrael b'kedushatecha Baruch atah Adonai hamavdil ben kodesh lekodesh Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shecheyanu v'kiyemanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
Amen. L'chaim. We continue now on page 25 with Aleinu. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה לעוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורל עלינו ככל המונם. אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לבני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים עמו, ושכינתו זו בגוהן מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אף סולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, ידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים עמה, ועל הארץ מתחתנו. לא כן לקבל לכם. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו echad. Before we recite Mourner's Kaddish, which is found on page 26, I'd like to allow us to pause for a moment. Earlier today, we recited the list of those who have yahrzeits this Shabbat, but I just want to pause and allow us to take a moment to think of those who are dear in our life, who've been lost from us, at least in a physical sense, and to kind of hold them in our heart just for a moment before doing Mourner's Kaddish together on page 26. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah, v'yalmad yivrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'mechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'galau v'zman kari v'imru Amen.
Amen.
Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam ulamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei v'yitadar v'yitalei v'yitalal Shemei dekudisha barichu la'ela mikol berchata v'shirata tush bechata v'rechamata damiran bi'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen.
Amen.
Zichronam livracha. May their memories be for a blessing. May their memories inspire us this new year to do acts of kindness, compassion. May their memories inspire us to make this world a better place. We continue now for the Psalm of the season, page 27. LeDavid Adonai Orim Misha. We're in the first bolded section in the top third with Achat Sha'alti. Achat Sha'alti met Adonai ota havakesh. Achat Sha'alti met Adonai ota havakesh. Shivti befeit Adonai Koyem bechayai Lachazot b'noam Adonai Ulevaker bechado Lachazot b'noam Adonai Ulevaker bechalo Kitzbenei Basuka Luhule he'emanti lirot betuv Adonai be'eretz chaim. Luhule he'emanti lirot betuv Adonai be'eretz chaim. Kaveh al Adonai cha'azak v'yahametz libecha. Cha'azak v'yahametz libecha. V'kaveh el Adonai. We conclude now as we turn to page 28 with Yigdal, and please, again, it's been wonderful having you join us this evening, this Rosh Hashanah, as we enter this new year together. Services tomorrow begin with an early service at 8:30 a.m. At 10 o'clock, we'll have our main service with Mitch Cohen, Shayna Kling, and our choir, and of course, the shofar. So start getting really excited for that. Again, at 4 o'clock, just like this afternoon, 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, we'll have our intergenerational service. That's a wonderful addition as well. We look forward to celebrating this new year with you. Thank you again for joining us this evening. We continue page 28, concluding with Yigdal. Yigdal Elohim chai v'yishtabach nimtza v'yenet el metziuto echad ve'en yachid keyechudo nelam v'gam en sof le'achduto en lo tebut haguf ye'eno guf lo naharoch elav kedushato kadmon lechol davar asher nivra rishon ve'en reshit lereshito hino don olam echod notzar yoreh gedulato malchuto shefa nevuato netanu el anshe skulato v'tifato lo kam b'Yisrael kemo shehod navi hu mavit et munato Torah temet natan le'ahamohel Aya navion mahameta lo yachal livahel velo yirdato leolamim lezulato Tzofe ve'yodea staharenu mabid lesof davar bekad mato gomel leish chesed mifalo noten lerashara kirishato ishlach leketzamin Mashiachenu liftot mechakeketz Yeshuato Meitim yechayel berov chasto Baruch Adeyad Shem Tihilato Meitim yechayel berov chasto Baruch Adeyad Shem Tehilato. Laila Tov, everyone. Shana Tova Umetuka. Shalom.
Shana Tova.